Hi everybody, this is Patrick Zielbauer from Infinity. Welcome. It is almost 3:30, so I think I'll just go ahead and get us started here. We'll start with some risk stuff. All right, trading futures, options on futures, and retail off-exchange foreign currency transactions involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your circumstances, knowledge, and financial resources. You may lose all or more of your initial investment. Opinions, market data, and recommendations are subject to change at any time. Past performance is not indicative of future results. So folks, only fund a futures account with risk capital. Okay, that means money you can afford to lose without lengthening your retirement horizon or affecting your ability to maintain your lifestyle. Okay. If you have any questions about leverage or risk, or you're not sure if this is for you or appropriate, please feel free to have a discussion with your representative in our office. The nice part about working with a firm where basically everybody you might talk to is registered and Series 3 registered is that we can give you unique advice to your situation if we know a little bit about your situation. So we're happy to have discussions with you on a personal level about futures and how we believe we can help you best approach this type of trading, and if it's appropriate for you given your level of risk tolerance and so forth. Okay, so please don't shy away from that discussion. It's valuable. Not many firms these days will have the time or take time to do that with you, so lever that accessibility while you're in the learning process. Okay. All right, so this event is part of a series of events that I do every Monday. We talk about some aspect of Sierra, and Sierra is a charting program that we offer and support here at Infinity. Most of you know that by now. Most of the people in the room here, just so everybody kind of gets a feel for it, are already live clients. So we like doing these types of presentations because it doesn't have to come off as a sales presentation. There are some people here who are kicking the tires a bit, totally cool. But we really are trying to gear this towards existing clients and also to give people who are checking us out a little bit some insight as to how we normally communicate with people and the lengths we're willing to go to help people learn the program. All right, so charting is a very personal thing. Everybody's got a different way of looking at things, and we're just trying to help people use this software as efficiently as possible. All right, so for those of you who are unsure, who don't know this, Sierra is bundled with our download. So if you have an account with Infinity, you download our platform. It also downloads what we call AT charts, or which is also known as Sierra, and it automatically gets downloaded as part of our program. And when you log in, you get our trading platform comes up. Up comes Sierra with it. If you're a live client, Sierra is free with 10 round turns every 30 days. So if you buy one, sell one contract 10 times in a 30-day period, or if you buy 5 and sell 5 twice, or however you do the total of 10, the uh, the fee that we would otherwise charge for the charts, which is $19.95, would be waived. So if you're doing a little bit of trading, even just a little bit of trading every 30 days, odds are you will not pay for the charting software. All right, and that cycle, that 30-day cycle, is not a calendar month. It's a 30-day period that begins the day that you physically opt yourself into the chart. So you control, when that date begins. All right. Okay, so any questions about that stuff, feel free to let me know. Um, let's move on a little bit into the topic of today, which is Sierra Charting School for new Infinity customers. So you don't have to be a new client to be here. Okay, we welcome everybody. But the idea is sometimes the topics that we cover in this presentation get relatively complex because Sierra is a relatively complex program. It's a great program, but you can get really crazy with the intricacies of this application. And the nice part about it is that anybody can get into it, even if you're not a developer or a programmer like me. I have no development experience whatsoever, but I have gotten this program to do some really cool things that you would sort of think you'd have to be a developer to do. So sometimes the topics get really intense, a lot of like quasi coding and overlays and things referring to each other and so on. And so I think what we don't want to do is alienate, people who just want to learn the basics of the software, especially people who have come on board lately, because we've had a number of people join us in the last few months, and this one is a little bit more for them. So for those of you who are experienced with Sierra, sort of bear with us. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to share with me. I can see the question box. There's a lot of people here, so I can't catch every single one every time, but I'll do my best to answer everything that comes through. And do feel free to ask questions. If I don't answer it right away, it's probably because I'm about to talk about something that is in the neighborhood, and I'd like it to be relevant. All right, so please feel free to ask questions. What I would like to do to get started is close this window that's open because I really want us to start with the program where they're as if we were starting completely fresh with nothing. Okay, so when you log into our platform, you get a window that looks like this. This is called the scoreboard, and the dome is the depth of market screen. This is actually the June contract, which really we should be looking at the next month. So I'll actually roll it over to September, which is right here now. And the market has just reopened here for its last part of the session. So this is the trading dome. You've probably seen this window before. Um, the scoreboard is this window, the dome is this window. And what a lot of people end up doing with our program is they will sort of arrange things on the screen in a way that fits their needs. So if you have lots of screens and you want to put this on another screen somewhere, no problem, okay? If you want to fit it all on one screen and you're just trying to figure out the best way to do that, one really common way to do that is to use the restore down button in the top right of the chart so that so it's not maximized, like it's taking up the entire screen. And you can sort of arrange the program in a way where you can see everything you need to see, kind of like this. So the scoreboard window can be minimized. You don't have to have this up all the time. Sometimes people will open up a couple of different domes for different markets. Like if I want to look at September bonds, I could bring up the dome for September bonds like this and sort of arrange this in a way where you can see everything you need to see. All right. And once you have the domes open that you typically will use, you can minimize the scoreboard window. All right, so if you minimize it, it goes and hides down at the bottom of the screen. You can't really see my taskbar in this video, but you can easily bring it back. All right, you can also minimize individual domes, okay, like that. Now again, you can't see that portion of my screen right now, but you can maximize those, or to bring them back, you can click on the blue arrow under the D column that corresponds with the symbol you want to launch the dome back. So again, it's just a little bit of a setup. The first time, figure out the markets you want quick access to, put them on the screen somewhere. If you have a couple of screens, that's great. You don't need 8 screens to use our program, but if you got a little extra space, that could be nice. And then once you have the domes open and they're in the location that you think will work for you, many people will end up minimizing this window. All right. The scoreboard, Michael, must be open if the platform is open. So if you've got a dome somewhere, the scoreboard's got to be open somewhere. The dome cannot be open with the scoreboard not being open. All right. If you accidentally close it, just go back and relaunch it off your desktop. Okay. Simon, as far as where the dome goes, the dome is going to usually hide in the bottom left part of the window. The way that my screen is set up, you're not going to see mine there, but that's typically where it goes. That function, though, is controlled by Windows, not by our program. So if you're having trouble with that, we could try to address it individually. All right. So that's really all I want to talk about on the dome side and the trading platform side. I want to focus a little bit more on the charts, but the general idea that I just want to get across is that you can make the screen, appear to have these, to be running these two programs as if they were one. They really do function as two separate applications. You cannot connect, for example, a dome to a chart. Okay, you can trade off the chart or the dome and see the trade on the corresponding window, but they're not linked in that way. They really do function as two separate programs. All right. Now, for now, I'm going to close my dome, minimize the scoreboard, and maximize my chart so I can take the whole screen up so everybody can see everything. But I just want you to know that you don't absolutely have to have the charts maximized all the time. It's just a matter of preference. Okay? All right. TJ, no, not at all. Sorry about that. All right. So when you're looking at this screen here, to get a chart open for the first time, there's a couple of different ways to do it. All right. One way is to use the Find Symbol button that's going to be in what we call the control bar at the top of the screen. All right. FS stands for Find Symbol. Or you can go to File and select Find Symbol right here. It'll take you to the same spot. So when you click Find Symbol, you get this window, and this window allows you to either type the symbol in yourself if you know it, which most of you will know the symbols, and if you don't, you'll know them quickly. Or if you don't know the symbol, you can locate it using this menu. So for example, if I want to locate the symbol E-mini S&P, I can go to ES, okay, like this, and then look for the current contract, which is actually now September. So the June is not expired yet. It's going to expire on Friday. Technically, you really could be trading June or September, but right now, so there's going to be more activity in the September contract. So you would just click on ESU8, or you could just type in ESU8 in this field right here. All right, so once you do that, you can push Open Intraday Chart like this, and what's going to happen in the background, the chart's going to load. Now, the first time you look at a market that you haven't looked at before, So for example, let's say I've never looked at the Canadian dollar, or I've never looked at heating oil or something like that. It's going to go through a loading process where it's going to download by default about 30 days of intraday data. That number can be expanded, it can be reduced. I actually reduce my loading to 5 days because it just loads the chart so much faster. And this computer that I'm running this on right now, in addition to doing the webinar and recording the screen, there's a lot of weight on the computer. It's not an outstanding machine. A lot of you probably have way better computers than what I'm running here. All right, and I'll show you in a minute how to do that. But the first time you download or look at a new market, it's going to download this data. It's going to take a second, and then it'll catch up to where the market is, which right now is 27.86 and a quarter. All right, now when you switch to a market that you've already looked at, the data download is going to be a lot faster because it doesn't have to re-download every single piece of data from our server every time. The data is stored locally on your hard drive, so it's very easily accessed. So you'll find that when you switch from one market to another and then back and forth, it should feel really fast. Okay, if it doesn't, then there might be a capacity issue or some other thing that's causing that. We can help you examine that. But it should feel like a pretty quick download, especially if you've already looked at that product. All right. Now, from here, just a couple of things about basic operation that I would like to show you how to do. And Eva, we'll get to the control bar in a little bit. We are going to talk about that. What Eva's asking about is this control bar, how to customize it, and what kind of fun things you can do with it, and so on. We will touch on that in a bit. It's actually a really useful feature, and it's well worth it to spend some time customizing that because you put the stuff up there that you use the most. All right, you don't have to use what we use. All right, now just a couple of things about basic operation. All right, scaling. Sometimes I just never explain this because I feel like every program should be done this way, and I realize that not all of them are. And that is, if you left-click your mouse in the y-axis where the prices are and drag up or down, you're going to get this behavior. Okay, so this is what we call interactive scale range. So if you right-click on the scale, you'll see some scaling options here right at the top. The default for all of our charts is interactive scale range. That means that when you put your cursor on the y-axis and left-click and drag up or down, that it expands the chart vertically. All right, if it gets out of whack like this, you don't know what you did, but somehow it got like this, you could just double-click in the y-axis and it'll revert back to show the high and the low on the chart, make them visible, and fit everything else obviously in between. All right, so left click, drag up or down, you get this behavior. Now, if you want to move the entire graph up or down, if you hold the control key on your keyboard and do the same thing like that, you'll end up moving the entire graph up or down. Okay, so you can also make that a default. So this control feature on the keyboard, what it does is it makes you do the opposite of whatever's selected here. So if you have interactive scale range checked, which you probably do because it's a default, if you hold control, what it does is it scales it as if you had interactive scale move checked. So interactive scale moved, which I just checked here, as you can see, is when you get this function. And if I hold control now, it does the opposite of whatever I have checked. So again, the default setting is interactive scale range. All right, that's what most people prefer. If you hold the control key down, you can move the entire thing up or down. There's also a bunch of other scaling options that I'm not really going to get into here, but just know that there's a lot of flexibility with how the scale behaves. And there's a separate section for scale settings as well. All right, so that covers the y-axis. Now on the x-axis, if you left click on the x-axis where the times are and drag to the left, okay, left click, hold the mouse button down, drag to the left, you get this behavior. And if you drag to the right, you get this behavior, okay? One thing you'll notice is that in the very bottom right-hand corner, there's a little box. It's green or red. All right, if it's red, it means you're scrolled back in time. So if you're looking at your chart and it's not moving and you know the market's open and it should be moving, and you're wondering why it's not working and you're about to pick up the phone and yell at me about it, okay? First thing you want to come down here is look in the very bottom right, make sure you're not scrolled back in time. All right, if you are scrolled back in time, either by using the wheel on the mouse or by grabbing the scroll bar back here and going backwards, you are not going to see the chart advance and you're not going to see price movement. All right, you can also get to the front of the chart very quickly by just pushing the end key on your keyboard. It's usually right above your up arrow on your keyboard. That'll take you to the front. Or You can use the mouse and go all the way back to the front like a wheel, like the wheel, or you can use the scroll bar and just go all the way back. All right. Now, this kind of leads into a common question we get, which I will explain right now, and that is, what if I like to keep a little bit of extra space between the current candle and the y-axis? All right, that's usually the next question that comes up. The answer is create the desired amount of space using the wheel on your mouse or the scroll bar. And once you've got it looking the way you want, where there's enough room here for you to see far enough into the future time-wise that to make you comfortable, then you can right-click and choose Lock Fill Space. Okay, this should be in your right-click menu. If it's not, I can show you how to add it, and we'll touch on that when we also talk about the control bar at the top, because this menu, like the control bar, can also be customized. But if Lock Fill Space is on, that means it's always going to keep this amount of space in between the current candle and the y-axis. And you will know by looking at the screen that Lock Fill Space is on, because in the bottom right, there'll be a capital L down here. So that wasn't there before. So if I right click and uncheck Lock Fill Space, okay, you see that capital L goes away. If I right click and check it again, it's back. All right, so this is how you can quickly know whether Lock Fill Space is engaged. All right, the other number that you see down here, the 12, what is the purpose of that? That is a measure of spacing between the candles. So if I'm zooming in like this by clicking on those times and going to the left, that number is going to get bigger. And if I go to the right, it's going to get smaller. The reason why we even show that is because some people like to have identical number of spacing on each chart that they've got open. So let's say you've got six charts in a grid. You want them exactly the same number of bars on each chart. This is a way for you to visually make sure that that's being done the right way. All right. Okay. Cool. Yeah, Michael. 6E is the euro. So that's one of the symbols that's in our program. So that's the euro futures. All right, Ed, we're going to get to your question here in a minute. It's very easy to do what you're describing, and we will get there very, very soon. All right? All right, everybody can hear me okay? Is the audio okay? Okay. Yeah, the audio is good. So if you're having audio issues, just log off and back in here real quick, okay? All right, hey Michael. Yeah, we'll have to touch on that outside of the event here, okay? Because 6E is the euro, unless you would have named it that manually and then changed the symbol. But 6E is the symbol for the euro. Okay, so from here, there's a few different places that we could go. All right, one way is to start adding some studies. Okay, we could start drawing on the chart and some other things that we'll get to. I'm sorry, Michael. Your question, that E you're seeing, the 6 is the measure of numbers. The E is a checkbox called evening session. It's from the chart settings window. It's not. It's just a different setting. I just don't usually cover that one, but we'll get to that in a bit. But that's what that's about. It's about the evening session. All right, so from here, let's talk about just basic stuff like adding a couple studies to the chart, and then what we're going to do is parlay that into some other useful functionality that really is not the studies themselves are not as important as the process of adding and editing them, as well as duplicating the charts and doing some other neat things. So let's do just a couple of really quick examples. So if you right-click on the chart and go to Studies, right-click Studies, you're going to get a menu that looks like this. And on the left-hand side, you're going to get a listing basically of all the studies that are available. And then on the right side, you're going to see what's currently being used, or graphed in this case. This is a very common theme you're going to see in a lot of different places inside Sierra, where it's a menu. And on the left-hand side, it's what your choices are. And then on the right-hand side, it's what's being used. All right, we're going to see this a few other times. So just as an example, let's just say I wanted to add a really simple study like the ADX. So I just click on ADX and click the Add button in the middle of the window, and you can see it now. It shows up under Studies to Graph. It's got an ID number of 1. Okay, that's a number that will come into play later if we get into some of the more advanced functionality. But once you have that on there, you can push Apply, and you're going to see the ADX shows up at the bottom of the screen. Now, this prompts usually a flurry of questions. Usually they're similar in nature, and one of them is, all right, well, how do I change the color and make it thicker and all that stuff? And then also, how do I get it so it doesn't take up so much space on the chart vertically? All right, we're going to talk about both of those things. So one thing that we're going to do is click on the settings button on the right side of this window. Okay, or you can just double click on the study itself in the menu. You don't have to click settings. You can also just double click like this, and you're going to end up at a window that has some tabs at the top. All right, the default tab is called Settings and Inputs. This is where any numerical input, 99% of studies are going to have some kind of numerical input. For a moving average, it might be the period length, or for MACD, it might be whatever the numbers you have, the RSI, stochastic, CCI, et cetera, et cetera. Some studies have no inputs here, like volume, for example, just a regular volume study. There's really no numerical input. But if you're using a study that does have a numerical input, 99.9% of the time it's going to be in settings and inputs. If a study has lots of yes or no type options, like do we want to draw it in a transparent format? Do we want to, things that Sierra as a charting vendor has already thought of you asking, usually you'll find them here too. So some studies have lots of inputs, and some of them have very few inputs. All right, the ADX has two. One of them is the length of the ADX, and one is if you want a moving average of the ADX. In this case, let's just say I wanted to make the ADX 20. I would just put a 20 here, and then push apply. And you're going to see it's just going to shift a little bit. All right, now the question that I had asked of everybody earlier, which had to do with the visual aesthetic properties of the study, how do we do that? Well, we go up to the subgraphs tab. So settings and inputs is where you control most of the time. You control the numerical inputs and other aspects of the study. The subgraphs tab is where you control the aesthetic properties of the study. For example, do I want this color to be blue like this? Do I want to thicken up the line a little bit? Maybe we want it to be a dashed line. And the value label on the right-hand side is, do you want to see the value of the line in the y-axis where the prices are? Okay, if the answer is yes, then check value label. And if I push apply here, you're going to see we get an instant response from the study. All right, it's a blue line, it's a little thicker, it's a dashed line, and now we get the value label here as well. There's a lot of other choices in here, lots of other variables and things like that that you can put on. I'm not really going to do much with that. One thing that is kind of useful, especially if you're using a chart that has lots of like horizontal line, like levels that you put in through some study, is the name label. Allows you to display the name of the study as well. If you want to customize the name label, like for example, it's using this text right here. If I wanted to customize this by saying ADX 20 or something, you could put in a short name right here and push apply, and it'll put that text in there instead. So the name label by default refers to this text right here. If you want to put your own short name in, you can put your own short name in as well. All right. Okay. The reverse colors, that is related to the like the text is going to be the same color as like the background, and then the background of the label is the same color as the line. So that's just all that is right there. Okay. All right, cool. Now I'm just going to hit OK and hit OK again, and now we're back to our main screen. Now this is usually the point where it's like, okay, the ADX, if I have to add one other study, I'm going to lose my whole chart. What do I do? If you put your cursor right where one region meets the other region, and this is what we refer to as region 1 up here. This is going to be region 2 down here. Okay, where one region meets the other, if you put your cursor there, you're going to see this little black line show up. When you see that, you can left click on it and just drag it down with your mouse like this and just let go. And it's going to resize the height of region number 2. Okay, so if this is always going to be where one region meets the other. All right, we'll add another study in a minute, and then we'll show you how to do that again as well. But that's how you can avoid the region 1 or region 2 being monopolizing the whole screen. All right, now as an example, like I mentioned, let's right click and go to studies again, and let's add another study just for visual effect here. We'll do a couple more. All right, let's add a MACD. So you just scroll down until you see MACD, push add, you see it gives us study ID number 2. And if I just push apply, it's going to put the study in the next region down, which in this case is region 3. Now my MACD looks a certain way because I've set some default color settings up, which you have not set, but I will show you in a minute how you can do that. But this is just to show you an example of how this might look when you start to add additional studies. All right, if you scroll further down, let's do something that would show up on the main price graph like a moving average. So I'll just go moving average exponential, click add, Push apply. All right, my moving average by default, I believe, is an 8-period EMA, and that is correct. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But now we've got a chart that's got the ADX, it's got the MACD, and it's got a moving average. So again, just like we discussed, if you are looking to edit various numerical inputs of a study, okay, if we go to the MACD, click settings, okay, here are the numerical inputs for the MACD. And notice how the numerical inputs for the MACD look different than those of the ADX, right? This is where you control that. Subgraphs is where you control the colors. If you want certain color settings to be defaulted for a study that you frequently add, once you have it looking exactly the way you want, like I've got, some different widths and color lines and so on here, click this little box at the bottom that says save the settings as the default. All right, save the settings as the default. All right, and if you do that, the next time you add the study, it will have those default settings. All right. Okay, so now we've added a few of these. Now, one question that came up earlier came up from Abby, which was, how do you keep a study from squinching your chart to keep the price, not the study expanded like the TPO value area? Okay, so what Abby is talking about is an example, a good example is the TPO value area lines study, because these lines are often very far away from where the current market is. Okay, like this. Well, in this case, they're really not that bad. But the idea with the TPO value area line study is that it's using, by default, yesterday's data. So if the market has moved a lot today versus yesterday, you might end up with lines that are really, really far away from where the market is. And what that does is it creates this visual effect of the market flattening out like this so that the chart can display those lines for you. All right, the way to control, that's a scaling issue that needs to be resolved. The way to control that scale, Abby, is if you go to settings and inputs, and for anybody who likes to use big moving averages like 200 period moving average or 500 period moving average, or any line that might be far away from where the current market is, click on the scale button right here and choose the option that says same as region. So once you're in the settings and inputs tab for a study, click on scale and then check same as region for that particular study and push OK. And what will happen then is the lines will be there, and if they're off the screen, they will still exist, but the chart will not flatten itself to force them to be visible until they become relevant. All right, so that's a common scaling issue that occurs when you have two studies on the same panel, or you have a study that has a value that's very, very far away from the current market, and the chart is squishing itself so it can show you that line. All right, that's obviously annoying, so that's a way to get around that. All right. Ricardo asks, Patrick, can a plot of an indicator be painted with a different color once the indicator reaches a certain level? Wow, that is absolutely possible, Ricardo. That's like 90% of these webinars I do talk about that very function. So I'm going to try to get to some of that here. It's a moderately advanced function, but we will cover at least one example of a study that we have called color bar based on alert condition, or color background based on alert condition. And we have that very well documented on YouTube as well. All right. Okay, now, from this point, we've now established that we've got some studies on here. We've got color settings that we've changed. We understand how to size these up properly. Okay. One of the things I would like to spend a little bit of time on is some of the drawing tools, and not because I want to go through all of them or explain how to use all of them, but I would like to at least show you how you can customize the drawing tools that you use the most. All right. For now, Abby, I'm going to remove the TPO study off the screen just because I'm going to draw some horizontal lines on the screen, and I just want to declutter it a little bit, but just to be clear. All right. So if you go to the Tools menu at the top of the screen, there's a lot of choices. All right. And all of the drawing tools are going to be under the Tools menu. There's some that go down here, and then there's some more up here, and there's actually some more in here as well. All right. What you're going to be able to do is customize the behavior of the drawings tools that you use via a section that's called Tool Configs. All right. Now, another way to get to this section is if you have a drawing tool that is in your control bar at the top of the screen, you can also right-click on the drawing tool and select Configure Button. So I always like to use the horizontal line tool as an example because it's probably the most frequently used one. So I'm just going to right click on this and go to Configure Button, or again, you can go to Tools, Tool Configs, and look for the option that says Horizontal Line Config. Okay, Horizontal Line Config. And when you get this, or you click this, you're going to get this window. And what you will notice is that every drawing tool has slightly different inputs. Okay, with a horizontal line, there's not that much to choose from. A color, a drawing style, and a width. There are, however, tabs for each one of these that include some options for price labeling. And most people who are using the horizontal line tool, I would generally assume, would like to be able to see the price of the line that they put on, although that is not a default setting. So if you like to draw a horizontal line and you want to be able to see the price, come to this section, click on labels, check price, push apply, and OK. What you will see is that you can have up to 8 of these configurations built in here. So if I go back to this options tab, you can see my horizontal line 1 looks like this. This is called tool configuration 1. This is tool configuration 2. This is tool configuration 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. And what you can do is you can add these tool configuration options to your control bar. So if I wanted to draw a horizontal line, I could click on the horizontal line tool. I'm on TC1. I draw the line here like this. Then I draw the horizontal line 2 again. Click on TC2, and I draw one here like this. Okay. So the tool configuration choices, I have 3 of them up here. You can put as many as you want. Allow you to control the visual aspect of the drawing tool you're about to use. Okay, you don't have to configure all of the drawing tools. Okay, you can do the drawing tools that you use the most. All right, that's generally what I would recommend. Okay, and Ricardo, the short answer to your question is yes, you can have an alert that is based on a trend line, like a stochastic crossing a line that you drew or some value. Yes, the answer is yes. I'm not sure we're going to get to that today, but yes, it's definitely possible. All right, and again, to get back to the place where we edit these tool configurations, you go to Tools, Tool Configs, and then look for the drawing tool that you want to configure. So the most common ones, as I mentioned, are usually the horizontal line config. I would say the next one is probably price retracement config. That's like a Fibonacci retracement. So if we just for kicks, let's go here. If we go to price retracement config, we get different choices, right? Because the price retracement or Fibonacci retracement option has many more inputs. All right, if you click on options, again, it's going to look way different. You have all kinds of different things. Do we want to extend the lines to the right? Do we want to put the labels on the right or the left? Do we want to round to a certain tick value? So each one of these is going to be a little bit different. But the general idea is I want you to be able to access these areas. Because once you get in there, you're going to be able to figure it out. All right, again, tools. All right, tool configs, and then you'll pick the one you want to edit. And again, I would say horizontal line config is probably the main one. Array config. Array is when you draw a line that starts off at one point, anchors to another, and then goes off into the future. So it might look like this. So here's the ray tool. So I have like a 1 point here, an anchor right here, and then a line that goes off into the future. So it's not like a trend line that ends where you end the line, but rather something that extends off to the right. Okay, that's called the ray tool. And then if you right click on a particular line, then you'll get an erase option. You'll get a different option or a different menu option when you right click on a drawing as opposed to right clicking somewhere else. Okay, so if you right click on a drawing, you'll get some choices like delete the line. You can create alerts based on the line. You can extend the line off to the right. You can change the colors and all kinds of things. So some of this stuff you probably will have done in your configuration, but if you want to edit a drawing, just right click on it and you'll see some choices. All right, so I'm going to erase this one just by right clicking and doing erase drawing. All right, if I want to erase this line here, okay, if you click on it, you'll see that it's selected because you see these little balls here. Okay, that's how you know it's selected. You can right click and hit erase drawing, or I think you can actually hit the delete key on your keyboard. Let me try that. Yeah, so you can hit the delete key on the keyboard as well. All right, so that's a pretty quick run through of the drawing tools. I know we could spend the entire day in there. There's a really good YouTube video that we did about the drawing tools specifically that I probably refer you back to. But does anybody have any questions on at least getting to the place where they can make, customize the drawing tools up to this point, or are we pretty clear so far? All right, let me know if you have any questions specifically on this topic. All right, so The next place that I'm going to go to from here is the right click menu, customizing that right click menu and that control bar at the top of the screen. All right, so let's start with the control bar because these are very similar, and we'll go through both of them as an example. All right, the control bar, yeah. Okay, yeah, Shauna, I'll get to your question as well regarding colors. Maria, to get to the section where you control the price label on the horizontal line, again, you go to Tools, Tool Configs. In this case, I'll do the horizontal line config, and you're looking for the labels option right up here. Okay, that's where, so every drawing tool is going to have different choices, some options and some labels. They're not going to be the same, but that's how you get there. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is the control bar. So if you right click on the control bar, you're going to see a choice that comes up called Customize Control Bar 1. And this is going to yield a familiar looking window that basically has every single command that exists in this program on the left, and then what we're currently using on the right, in order from left to right. So this status bar, that's this green thing up here. So when you're connecting, it turns yellow, and then when you disconnect, it turns red, and now it's green because it's connected. All right, that's the status bar. Find symbol or FS, you can see that's right here. Okay, connect to data feed, disconnect from data feed, new chart book, et cetera, et cetera. So this is definitely something then that you'll want to customize because you will probably use it a lot, and it'll save you a lot of time scrolling through drop-down menus, from the top of the screen. All right, so my advice would be to leave some of the basic things in there, like the status bar, find symbol, connect, disconnect, new chart book, open chart book. That refers to like open a file you would have saved. I have some other ones that I put in here, like close all chart books and duplicate chart and duplicate chart to another chart book, which was related to Ed's question, which we'll get to in a minute. But there's I just like to save clicks. I don't want to have to click in a million places. I'm doing this all day long. All right, just like you. So this is a good place for you to start thinking about the commands you use the most. And a lot of these you won't know what they are until you start using them. And at that point, I want you to come in here and make some changes. All right, so I also have a series of like saved chart books that I've put together. So you can actually click on a button up here and have chart books that I have saved with these names automatically launch. All right, that's a little bit more of an advanced function that I'm thinking about doing away with because I think it's kind of confusing in these events. But there are a couple here that are directly related to what we just talked about, including the tool configurations. So if you scroll down here, eventually you're going to see this TC1, TC2, TC3, and that's where these buttons are right up here. All right, so the way to get the tool configurations into the control bar is to look under Tools, the Tools menu on the left-hand side, and scroll down until you see the tool config options. So you can see that I have 1, 2, and 3 on the right already. Okay, on the left, it picks up where we left off, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, are you going to need 10 tool configurations in the control bar? More than likely you will not. But I would say 1, 2, or 3 might be useful, and there are various reasons for that, but usually people will have 1, 2, or 3 in there. All right. Ed, I don't know if there's a way to expand the control bar width. I'm not sure if there's a way to do that. I believe that a lot of the control bar functionality is actually controlled by the Windows operating system. I'm not 100% certain though. I have a really high resolution and relatively big monitor that I'm doing this presentation on, so they look really small even to me, but I'd have to look into that. I'm not 100% sure if there's a way to do that. All right. As far as the control bar goes, going forward, one of the common questions we get a lot also has to do with these time periods on the left, on the up top or right. So 1 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute, 1 hour, daily, and weekly. These are the defaults that I have up here. You can also add your own custom toolbars. So the way to, excuse me, your own custom times. So there's a field, its own field called chart bar period here. Lewis, you were asking about this. A couple other people were asking about this as well. So if you go to chart bar period, there are some that exist, all right, but you can also make your own custom ones. So the make your own custom bar period, for example, Lewis was asking about a 1,000 tick chart. just look for custom bar period 1 as an example. And I'm actually going to add that over to the right hand side, and then you can move it up or down. So I'll make it the first one. So I'll just put it right above the 1 minute. And right here, you'll see this option come up called set period. And you can control the interval from here. So if you're looking for 1,000 tick chart, that's actually number of trades per bar. That's this one. I could just do 1,000. Push OK. You can see it changes 1,000 number of trades. And I push OK. The control bar is going to reload with 1,000 trades. It says 1 KT, 1,000 trades per bar. So if I click on that, now I have a 1,000 tick chart. All right, so again, the control bar can be customized heavily. What most people do is they put in their drawing tools and time frames and other functions that they use frequently. And there's going to be some things in there by default you never use. Please feel free to remove those using the remove button up here. All right, but you can go through and add as many as you want. Right. Okay. All right. So there might be some more questions that come up about that, but before we go further, I would also like to show you a similar option for the right-click menu. Okay, very similar. You just right-click you go to Global Settings, and look for the option here that says Customize Chart Shortcut Menu. That refers to this right-click menu. Global Settings, Customize Chart Shortcut Menu, and then you're going to get, again, a very similar interface. What is available? This is basically all the commands available inside the whole program, and then what is currently selected. And then you can put spacers or separators in. So I've got in here, the most common drawing tools, some places I go frequently, like the Studies menu, Chart Settings menu. There's an option that I use a lot called Duplicate Chart to Chartbook. I think, Ed, you were asking a question earlier that is related to this. Which Ed was it? Ed Wilford. Yeah. So, Ed, you may want to consider adding the duplicate chart to chartbook function in here if you like to copy charts frequently out of one chartbook into another one. All right. So, or you can just access that same command under the chart menu here. So if you go under the chart menu and there's a choice called duplicate chart to chartbook, what that does is it copies the chart that you have up into another chart book that you already have open. All right, so as an example, if I were to open a brand new chart book, file, new chart book, now we have a new blank screen here. If I'm in chart book 11, which is my original one, I can right click and say duplicate chart to chart book. And then it says, okay, well, which one do we want to duplicate it to? I'll choose chart book 12, which is the new one that we just opened, and say, yeah, let's switch to it. So if I push OK, now I'm in chart book 12 and I've got the same chart as I had in chart book 11. So that's mostly useful where you've got a chart book that's got a bunch of stuff in it and you want to take just one piece of it and put it in another chart book for some other reason. All right, you don't want to have to duplicate the whole thing or rebuild it from scratch. It's a useful function. Inti, I do not believe there's a way to link the region heights at all. That's a good question, but I don't believe that's possible. There are a lot of other linking options available, but I'm not sure you can link the region heights. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so a couple things I want to get to before I forget here, and one of them is a question that we perhaps should have covered at the beginning, and that is graphic settings. So white background, black background, everyone's got a preference. If you and text color and size and all that. If you click up under global settings and go to this second option that says graphic settings global. Okay, what you'll see is there's a bunch of choices for the text color, the background color, the scale border, which is this little line that separates the X and Y axis from the main price graph. Okay, every color in this program can be changed. The last trade price box, which is this box right here. Okay, the color of the candles, the outline of the candles. I mean, it's very, very flexible. So if you prefer to use a black background, you'd probably want to come up to chart background, change the color to black, maybe make the text color white or gray or something that you can see. And you can also now, we haven't really covered this, or I haven't really documented it properly just yet, but you can also load color templates. So you can now save your settings. So if you have settings that look a certain way, you can actually save it as a template, and you can load a graphic template. So if you have, a situation where you want to, you want everything to have a white background with black text, then that might be your default setting. But you might have another setting called number 2 that is, with a black background and white text, or vice versa. Okay, I'm not going to go too far into that yet. We'll make a separate video on it, but just know that that is possible. All right, for Shauna, your question, I believe you were asking about the text size and color. That's under the fonts tab. It's the very first choice. So if you want to make the font text bigger on the y-axis or the x-axis, that's going to be this tab here. So you're going to Global Settings, Graphic Settings, and then the Fonts tab. And there's different fonts in the chart program. The most common one that people like to change is the chart text, which is the main price and the times. All right. So Steve had a question that just came through, which was, how do I add a set of charts to another screen? So Steve, you cannot have 2 entire chart books visible at the same time. What you can do is detach individual charts and put them on the other screen. And even though they're on another screen, they are still part of the chart book that you're in. So as an example, if I were to right click on the chart here and choose detach/attach chart window, what happens when you do that is it pops the window out. So now this window is its own window. Okay, it's its own thing floating around the top of the screen here. I know the display looks a little funky right now because of that's GoToWebinar doing this, but let me just put it back. So if you right click and detach/attach chart window, it goes back. Right click, detach/attach chart window. It pops the window out, and then this window can be moved onto another monitor. So it's still part of Chartbook 11, but the idea is that Chartbook 11 does not have to be limited to one screen. All right, what you can do is you can populate Chartbook 11 with all the charts that you want, detach as many of you as you want, put them on other screens in the correct location, and once they're where you want them to be, go to File and Save As and name it something. All right, just like we would name anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and reattach this just for effect right now. So we'll just detach/attach chart window. Let's say we've got this on one screen, we've got a bunch of other charts detached on another screen. That's fine. You would just go to File, Save As, and name it something. So I could call this, 6, 11, 18 webinar sample, and save it. And now we've got a file name up here called 61118 webinar sample. All right, so if you switch to another chart book, your original chart book will be hidden. All right, it's still open, it just will be hidden. If you are the type that has like 2 or 3 screens and you want to take individual charts and put them on the other screens, that's fine. If you want to be able to see them all at the same time, they need to rest within one chart book. And the way to do that is to detach them and put them in the correct spot. All right. Abby, we'll have to touch on that a bit later, okay? It's just, we'll be going down a rabbit hole with that one. All right. Now, the next thing that I sort of want to touch on here is this concept of linking. Mike, your question is well timed, okay? Linking is the idea that the symbol on one chart or a certain behavior of a chart can be attached to other charts in the same chart book, so that when you do something to one of them, it does something to all of them. All right. And the most common example of using linking in Sierra is through what's called a quote board. And a quote board is a little window that if you open it up, you go to File, New Quote Board, looks like this. And what you can do is populate this quote board with symbols and then link the quote board to the chart. So when you click on the symbol, the charts flip over to that symbol. All right, so when you get a quote board up, and the quote board can be customized, it's got its own settings menu. We'll get to it in a minute. I'm not going to go 100% into all the functionality of the quote board here, just because it'll chew up the rest of the time we have. But it's pretty simple. You double click in here, you enter the symbol you want. There's the S&P. Okay, oops, go one down. NQU8. There's the NASDAQ. Okay, the Russell, and then let's put in July crude, and I guess we're in August gold now. All right, so you put these symbols in, and in the quote board settings menu, there's an option that says set chart link. Okay, settings, set chart link. And most people choose link number 1. Okay, now you can have other link numbers, and there's reasons why you might use different link numbers, but most people are using link number 1. And when you push OK, you're going to see an L:1 show up in their header of the window. All right. Now, how do I get the chart to match the symbol? I'm clicking here and nothing's happening. Well, why not? All right. The reason is I have to set the same chart link number to the chart as the quote board for them to talk to each other. So I'm going to restore down this window here just so it's not taking up the entire screen, like this. Okay. And I'm just going to look for the CL1 button in the control bar up there. All right, CL1. Now, if you don't have it in there because for whatever reason, you can also get to the same area by going in the chart menu, go down to linking, and then there's a number, and you can choose link number 1. Okay, so the chart menu, linking, choose the number, and then choose link number 1. And when you do that, you will see the same L:1 in the header of the chart. So if you're looking at the chart and you see an L1 up here, and you see a L1 in the quote board as well, that's how you know these are linked. So if I click on July crude now, it's going to flip my chart over to July crude. If I click on August gold, it's going to flip it over to gold, like this. Okay. So the Russell I haven't looked at in a little while, so it just did this little historical data download. Okay, that's normal behavior. All right, so this is a very common way to use the linking function. The reason why is it allows for the use of an easy way to monitor multiple time frames of the same product. So if I want to put my quote board up here and I want this to be my daily chart, okay, I can change my chart to a daily chart really, really quickly using the keyboard. 1D enter. That's it, daily chart. So just left click anywhere, 1D enter. It's going to make it a daily. All right, and then you right click on the other one, or excuse me, on this chart, duplicate chart. Right click, duplicate chart. It's going to make a copy of the chart. I can move this one right over here. And now I could say, all right, I want this to be 60 minutes, 60M. And you can see the text show up right up here. 60M, enter. We now have a 60-minute chart. The great part about duplicating the chart is that all the stuff that's on it and its properties go with the copy. So the link number goes with. The lock fill space goes with. All the studies go with. So if I click on the crude now, my charts are flipping over to whatever market I have selected, like this. So if I want to duplicate this again, right click, duplicate chart. All right, let's make this 5-minute. 5M, enter. We got a 5-minute chart. I can just repeat this process for whatever I want. Let's make this one 100 ticks. 100T. That's 100 ticks or 100 trades. So all of these are linked to the quote board because of that link number 1. All right, so this is the easiest way to link a number of charts together so that when you click on a symbol, all the charts flip over to that symbol. Michael, for example, you were asking something similar. All right, NT, I don't think there's a limit as to how many charts you can have inside one chart book, but if there is, it's going to be heavily determined by your computer more so than it is the program. Sierra is a pretty light application, so you can run a lot on this program without too much of a resource hit. All right. And there are other aspects of linking that can be, that you can put in play. So one place that you'll find a lot of this stuff, and this is actually good that I'm thinking of this now because it'll take us to a couple other things that are important as well. If you right click and go to chart settings, chart settings is like the main control center for the chart. Now, you don't have to change a lot in here. All right, there are some things that you may want to use, like open, high, low, close bars instead, or line on close charts. Things like that can be changed in the graph draw type section. But there's also a linking section. It's under this advanced settings 2 option. And the advanced settings 2 option has this chart linking choice here where we can link by other things rather than just the quote board. So for example, one really useful aspect of this is the studies. If you are the type of person where you've got a bunch of time frames open and the studies are identical to the point where if you were to change the study on one chart, you would want it to change on the other ones too, then you can choose this studies option right here. All right, and if you choose the studies option, right now we're on the daily chart. You don't have to change you don't have to go through every single chart and do this. You can actually make this chart have something called master mode, and master mode means that if this daily chart has master mode enabled, it means that any other chart with the same link number is going to get whatever links we choose here. So I don't have to go to each one of these charts and choose all these choices. So I could link them by bar spacing, which is how like squished or zoomed in or out we are. I could link them by scroll position, which is how scrolled further or back we are. All right, I wouldn't want to do them on bar period here because we want different bar periods. So we don't want them all to be 5-minute charts. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as it is. And if I push apply here, let's just say, for example, that I want to add another moving average to the screen. So let's go to moving average. I just want to add a 50 period. Let's say I want to add a 50 period SMA. So I'll just do a 50. And the colors here, I'm going to make it, let's call it this color. Okay, so I added it to the daily, but because this chart has master mode on it and all these things are linked number one, they all get the line. So it's a useful function for those of you who are using the same study on a number of different time frames, or same group of studies on a number of different time frames. All right, and by the way, if anybody who wants a copy of this file so that you can watch the replay and go through this again slower on your own pace, just email your rep in our office, whether it's me or whoever in the office, and we'll make sure to get it to you. That's a really useful way to, to learn the program. All right. Okay. One other thing that I want to mention too is if you right click and go back to chart settings, there's one section under this advanced settings option that we get asked about a lot, and that is continuous charts. Now, this past week and yesterday pretty much was the rollover from June to September in the E-minis. So we get a lot of questions about continuous charts around rollover, which is 4 times a year. Continuous charts are basically going to load a lot more historical data, and they're most useful for large time frames like daily charts. Okay, or if you are using a big intraday time frame like 480-minute bars or something around rollover where there's not a lot of historical data. So if you want a chart to be continuous, just go to right-click Chart Settings and click on this Advanced Settings tab, and you'll see this option here called Continuous Futures Contract. There's lots of different ways to do a continuous futures contract. I just normally do the first one, which is called Continuous Futures Contract Date Rule Rollover. And if you push apply, then it'll reload some historical data, and you'll see a C up here at the top left. So sometimes I log into someone's chart remotely, or we're answering questions, and they're wondering why things are kind of hanging up a little bit, or it's too slow, or something. And then I find out they have a 100 tick chart set up with continuous data, and it's loading 760 days. Okay, it's an awful lot of data to ask the program to bring in, and it's definitely going to impact the resource usage of the program. So I don't recommend you use continuous charts on all your intraday charts. I usually recommend you use it on your daily charts or your really big intraday timeframes. Okay? So just an aside, but that usually comes up right around rollover, from time to time. So if we click on ES here, it's going to flip them all over, and the continuous symbol, the continuous indication here remains on the daily. All right, quick ways to change symbol, Michael. If you don't want to use the quote board, which really is the quickest way in my eyes at least, you can use your keyboard, and the way to change a symbol on a chart is to left click on the chart and just do a / and you'll see it right up here. So if I want to change this, say to the British pound, I could do 6BM8 and push enter, and it's going to flip it over to a British pound. All right, now all my charts are not flipping because I didn't link them by symbol in that chart settings section, but that's a quick way to change charts if you want to use your keyboard. So just do / ESU8, okay, and hit enter. So the time frame thing is using the keyboard. If you're proficient with the keyboard, is a really easy way to use the program because especially with the time frames. So I could here right click, duplicate chart. Okay, I can come over here and I could just make this, let's say, a 6-tick range bar. 6R enter. It's 1.5 point now, or 6-tick range bar. All right, if I want to cycle through a time frame, 240M enter, now it's 240 minutes. Okay, 15M enter, now it's 15 minutes. 30S enter, 30 seconds. 10S enter, 10 seconds. So it is a really, the program loads fast, and it's just not, you're not going to see it hang and hang and hang and hang while it tries to download the data unless you have like, a limited network. All right. If you want to enable this function needs to be enabled. It actually is supposed to be enabled by default, Mike, but the way to make this enabled is to go to global settings, general settings. Okay, so global settings, general settings, and you're basically looking for, I think it's general 2. Yeah, general 2. Okay, the second tab, and it says support symbol entry from chart window. This needs to be checked. Support symbol entry from chart window. All right. Okay, now a couple of things that I want to touch on and before we wrap up, because we are running out of time. And I usually don't cover this because I selfishly, I feel like it gives me a headache and makes me go blind, but I don't use the crosshair function very often. All right, a lot of my clients do like to use the crosshairs. So I want to talk very briefly about how the crosshairs function and how you can get, this sort of behavior. So the crosshair is this little thing up here, okay, chart values tool. All right. And when you have that on, you're going to get sort of this behavior here, right? Now, I'm getting it on all my charts right now, okay? They're sort of synchronized together. The way that you get this behavior where you've got the charts sort of synchronized in this fashion with the crosshair is by going to the Tools menu and look for this option that says Global Cursor On. So if you want that cursor to be present on all your charts, then you want Global Cursor On to be checked. All right, the reason why this is useful for those of you who you probably already know is like on the 5-minute, if I'm scrolling back here, I can see where my mouse is on the 60-minute as well. So it's a multi-time frame analysis tool basically. So as I scroll back, I can see where on the other charts that I'm at. All right, so that's why people like to do this. So again, if you go to Tools, okay, Global Cursor On, there's an entire section of the program dedicated to the behavior of the crosshair. All right, that's how big this program can be, and how flexible it can be. If you go to Tools and then go to Tool Settings, you'll see there's lots of choices in here. There's a tab at the top that's called Chart Values. Okay, some people like to have the Chart Values tab on all the time, even if they have other tools enabled. Like if you're in the middle of drawing a horizontal line, or if you're using the pointer but you also want to see the crosshair, something like that, then you can choose these other options. Okay, I typically don't have this selected, but what I would encourage you to do is that if you like the crosshair to behave a certain way, or you're wondering why it doesn't behave like it does on your other program, odds are it can. You just have to check the settings section. Okay, so again, the way to get here is to go to the Tools menu up at the top, and then say go to Tool Settings, and then you'll look for this window that comes up here. All right, there's all kinds of functionality here related to how the drawing tools behave and all that stuff, but the chart value section is where you cover the choices related to the crosshair. One thing that is kind of relevant, I guess, in this discussion is there's a choice here called after single tool use change to. So you know that phenomenon where you draw a horizontal line like this, and then you draw it, and then you forget that you still have the horizontal line selected, and then you click again and you accidentally draw another line and another one and another one, and now you have a whole bunch of lines, and it just makes you want to pull your hair out. Okay, so if you don't want that behavior, you can go to Tools, Tool Settings. Okay, there's this option here that says after single tool use change to. So this defaults to none. So what this means is that if I draw a line, then when I'm done drawing the line tool is still selected. All right, mine usually says pointer here. After single tool use, change to pointer, which means that after I draw the line, it reverts back to the pointer, and if I want to draw another line, I have to select the tool again. Now, this is just the way I prefer it to be. All right, but that again is just a nuance of the program, and it's 100% personal preference. I just want you to know that it's possible. All right, so again, Tools, Tool Settings, and then right up here, after single tool use, change to, and then mine says pointer, but yours might say crosshair or something else. All right. Okay, yeah, I know it's a massive program. I mean, Sierra does not feel like it was designed by Apple. That is true, but it's so fast. It functions well under stressful conditions. It doesn't have a huge resource hit, and there's a lot you can do in this thing without having to be a programmer, or without having to pay these endless fees to these ecosystems of people selling indicators. I mean, there's nothing wrong with paying for some education or for buying some useful tools, from time to time, as long as you're getting the support to match it up. But this idea that you just have to go purchase indicator after indicator after indicator without the support, to me it's just not necessary. And programs like Sierra let people who are regular people like me, who are not developers, come up with some really neat things you can do in this program without being a developer. So I think what we'll probably end up doing is uh, maybe we'll continue this next week and we'll just go a little bit more advanced. So we'll do some of the color background stuff. We'll do some things with overlays and some more advanced functions. But if there's anything that you feel is crucial to your development of in use of the program, then send your rep an email in our office, and we will make sure to cover it next time as long as it's possible. All right, so I think we probably continue this, next week. We'll pick it up sort of where we left off here. I'm going to save this file once again, and anybody who wants a copy of it, you're welcome to have a copy of it, and then we'll get a little bit further into it next week. All right. The trade service log, Mike, just your best bet is just grab that window, make it really small, and put it in the bottom right corner and close it. So if it has to pop back up, it'll pop up smaller. Okay. You can install the program on multiple machines. Yes. No problem. Abby, no worries. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. All right. Okay, good. Well, folks, I think that's probably where we will leave it. Our system is kind of going into maintenance mode here for the next 10 minutes or so. You should be able to log back into the software at about 4:45 Central, about 10 minutes from now, in preparation for the reopen. So everybody have a great night. I'm going to read some risk stuff one more time. We'll close the room up. We'll have this, in the Charting Club. This website, we are launching this website, chartingclub.com. I'm going to send it to everybody here. Um, we're going to start archiving a lot of stuff in here, and we are planning on, this is getting populated by more than just me. There's a lot of people in our office now contributing content for this. It's going to be a really neat resource for people who are interested in Sierra. So there's going to be lots, it's all going to be very well organized. We're taking lots of feedback. So this is a great way to stay connected to us, because we have a lot of resources going into this little sister website of ours, and it's going to be really neat. So make sure that you register for that, and we will have this video up inside the Charting Club probably within a day or so. All right. So thanks again for coming, everybody. I do appreciate it. I'm going to read some risk stuff here one more time, and we will see you next time. All right. Thanks again so much. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time. All right, everybody. Thank you. Trading futures, options on futures, and retail off-exchange foreign currency transactions involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your circumstances, knowledge, and financial resources. You may lose all or more of your initial investment. Opinions, market data, and recommendations are subject to change at any time. Past performance is not indicative of future results. All right, everybody. Thank you.